What is he doing? Nah, bro, I think he's legit. You just can't do that in that situation. Nah, you couldn't be more wrong. Yeah, I could agree with that. This is the Poojie Podcast. What's happening, Pooj crew? Poojie here, episode 139, breaking down Jaguars Broncos game in London this past week. Looking ahead to the Jags Raiders. Fun episode, huge episode today, just packed with a lot. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe, like the video, do all that good stuff to support, or find us on your preferred podcast streaming platform. But he's back again, as he was last week. We got Kyle here joining us following that 21-17 loss to the Broncos in London. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on.
You said it last week. It's probably more fun when we win. About halfway through this game this past Sunday, I was feeling good about it, thinking, okay, yeah, we're going to have a fun episode, but right back to the old Jaguar ways.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, like, knowing when you're watching it what we're capable of doing with a lead, and, like, it's in the back of your head, like, you want to be excited. But, yeah, just it's funny. Things we talked about last week are exactly what happened this week, and another game that could have easily been won.
They always seem to start out so hot, always start out so well, and it's like there's no lead that the Jaguars can build that is insurmountable from the opponent, and it's frustrating because we were winning 10-0, yet another double-digit lead at some point of a game, and we're sitting here with 6 losses. So I'd have to look at the statistics on that and see the likelihood of that happening. Mm-hmm. I've looked at some of the metrics, and according to how the offense and defense are playing compared to league average, this team is performing at a playoff clinching team, not even like a wild card berth team. They are performing at a high enough level to be considered a playoff team. What is it that's happening, in your opinion, that we're just seeing such a lapse in success?
I mean, I think it's got to come down to turnovers, like on the offensive side, because we're putting together good drives and then turning the ball over. We're getting yards and big drives and then getting field goals out of it. So those two things, when you're not converting, quality drives into touchdowns, like I don't even know if it's considered a quality drive if it's a field goal and not a touchdown. But, when you're ending with a turnover or a field goal or a missed field goal or something to that effect, the stats are going to be a little misleading as far as like yards and all of that.
And right before the half, actually, the Jaguars got the ball back. The Broncos had just scored a touchdown to Jerry Jeudy. Mm-hmm. It was really the Broncos' first offensive drive that they put together the entire game. Up to that point, the defense had been holding their own. You expect the playmakers on the Broncos at some point are going to emerge to put a drive together, and that's what happened. But Jags get the ball back with about 4 minutes left in the first half, and they move the ball down the field. They get right around the 40-yard line, and 3rd and 9, Trevor Lawrence takes an intentional grounding penalty, so spot foul, loss of downs. I don't know if they were in field goal range to begin with, but that's about the 3rd or 4th time this season that I've seen Trevor Lawrence do something himself, solo. That was a solo act, taking the Jaguars out of potential field goal range, chip shot field goal range to long field goal. So even to that point, that's exactly what's happening. Right before the half, you have a chance to go in with momentum, respond to the Broncos touchdown with your own field goal, potentially own touchdown if you can get more yards, and it just doesn't happen. And I'm getting to the point where I'm seeing flashes of great play from a lot of people on the team, but I'm not seeing it all come together at the same time. And I think that's why we're not seeing it kind of culminate in points on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can start with the end of the quarter. I had that written down as a point to bring up. Last week we talked about how the Broncos were the most penalized team in the league, and I think in the first half they had 10 penalties. I remember texting you saying this is exactly what the stat sheet shows. They were giving us free plays. And granted, there was a bad taunting on a Denver guy that I did not agree with. Obviously, we take the penalty, but we got gifted a free 15 yards. Even on that kickoff on that drive, the Broncos got a delay of kickoff or something like that, a delay of game on the kickoff. I think the stat sheet said delay of kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to go back 5 yards, couldn't get a touchback, and we had the ball at the 33 to start. So, essentially a free 8 yards that we're starting from. And then there was an offsides penalty. It would have been 3rd and 6, but there was an offside. So we got 2nd and 5 instead of 3rd and 6 on that drive. Again, I have the whole thing written out. But that intentional groundings, they give us good field position. Then they, spare us a 3rd and long. And then we get a first down. It looks like we're going to get it moving. We should have had the ball. I think it was on the 38-yard line. And then the intentional groundings would have backed it up to our 48-yard line or 47-yard line, however that would work out, or 10, 15-yard penalty, whatever. So we certainly were in field goal range, like you mentioned. I think anything at the 40-yard line, 38-yard line, you have to consider kicking a field goal, especially at the end of the half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's not being able to kind of cap off those drives like we've mentioned, but it's one thing after another that's just continuing to disappoint fans, including myself, every game we watch. And you said it at the top of this episode. As you're watching the games, we're so desensitized to success that we are just able to watch the collapse and we know it's coming. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at kind of the drive by drive summary here. Denver 3 plays and a punt, Jaguars 4 plays and a punt. Denver interception, which led to the Jaguars touchdown, held them to a punt, and then a 13-play, 80-yard drive, 7 minutes and 22 seconds by the Jaguars, 1st and goal at the 1.
0 points.
0 points. 0 points. Interception, almost identical play to the Texans game that saw Trevor Lawrence throw that terrible interception. Gosh, the defensive back, the guy from LSU, who's that guy? Can't think of his name. He's on Houston. He was a top 5 pick like 2 years ago. Same exact play, though. Rolling out to the right, trying to hit a receiver in the back of the end zone and intercept it. So that was a chance to go up 14-0, potentially just 10-0, but more than likely 14-0. And with the way the Denver offense had been playing up to that point, and with what we've seen the way Denver's played in the last 6 weeks, we were kind of expecting, okay, a 14-0 lead. We're feeling comfortable. We're feeling good. That interception happens. The defense still steps up and continues to hold it down. Mm-hmm. So doesn't really get out of hand yet. But it's just one of those things where it seems like we are just constantly shooting ourselves in the foot. And I feel like we could repeat the same thing every episode, because here we are again after another single-digit 4th quarter blown lead. Trevor Lawrence gets the ball with a few minutes left in the half, or in the game, to try and win it. Throws an interception to end the game. It's terrible. Where are you at with Trevor Lawrence at this point, as far as your thoughts and feelings on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the dichotomy of Trevor Lawrence. He throws that incredible corner route to Evan Ingram for that touchdown, just on a dime right to him, and then he does that on the 1 yard line. I mean, back to that drive. That's like a picture perfect drive. 13 plays, 80 yards, 7 minutes and 22 seconds. So you have the ball for a half of a quarter of the game. That would be about 6 yards a play. So you're getting a first down every other play. I mean, that is what you want in an offense to be cooking. And I mean, I've said it last week and I've said it to you, previously. We're on the 1 yard line and we're doing like some rollout, like flood right type play. Last week, Trevor Lawrence, correct me if I'm wrong, he had a QB sneak for a touchdown. And the week before against the Colts, I think he had 2 QB sneaks for a touchdown.
Yeah.
I might be off on that, but what are we doing on 1st and goal? And the first play is a shotgun rollout. I don't understand it. I mean, that's on the coach for calling it, and then it's 100% on Trevor Lawrence. He doesn't have the like the quick decisions that you need to have in this league to be a quarterback. He needs to understand if it's not there, tuck it and run, or just dump that to the sideline right there, and you got 2nd and 1 from the goal line.
Yeah, it does seem like he's kind of sticking to that first read option. And these players he's playing against are good enough to catch on to that pretty quickly. And I think that's what we're seeing now. So he's rolling out right, and he sees Marvin Jones in the back of the end zone, and that's where he's going. It doesn't feel like he's going to throw the ball. Even when he was rolling out and from the camera angle that we were watching the play from, it never felt like he was just going to make the smart play and throw it away. It always felt like he was going to try and force it in somewhere, and that's what it led to, an interception. And not to mention, I mean, let's bring up Travis Etienne, who ran all over the place. He was a madman out there, 156 yards on 24 carries and a touchdown. You're first and goal from the 1, and you have Etienne, who has, shown that, yeah, he might be small, but he's mighty. He can, can break a tackle and get a yard. In my feelings, like maybe he's got to be the top of mind option on short yardage situations if it's not going to be a QB sneak.
Yeah, again, I don't understand why we are adverse to letting Lawrence run a little bit. And also, I think I said it last week, but we don't do anything under center. Like even the handoffs on the goal line situation are all out of shotgun. It's allowing, I feel like the O-line not to get as big of a push or the ball is quickly to the line, the running back getting to the line quickly. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, when you're in shotgun and you're doing like a draw or something like that with a dive with the running back, you're going from first and goal at the 1 to, okay, now he's got to pick up 4 yards, and you have to hope that your offensive line hasn't allowed any of the defensive linemen through into the backfield.
Right. And you're losing, if it's like an inside handoff from shotgun, he's going from a standstill to going forward. When you're in, under center, he's getting a running start to get the handoff. So he's got momentum already going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Perfect way to put it there. He gets momentum. He can maybe find the hole, and he probably has better vision coming from directly behind the snap than to the left of the snap. He can maybe see the hole a little bit better there. So just another gut-wrenching, disappointing loss. Not surprised to see it happen. I'm still kind of seeing glimmers of hope. Like, it looks like the team is kind of, yes, they're losing, which is always disappointing to a fan base, and I'm not sitting here trying to sugarcoat anything. But it does feel good to say, okay, wait, we're 1 or 2 plays away. Then, okay, we're 3 or 4 positions away. It feels like we're remaining competitive. It feels like the guys are continuing to show up, responding to different plays, to different drives from the opposition. So if I did have to say anything positive, it's they're having me sit there until the end of the fourth quarter to watch these games because they're staying in the games. Is that enough for you to see at this point with what this team's gone through, going from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence's second year, Travis Etienne out last year? This is his first year. Christian Kirk's first year in the system. Evan Ingram's first year. Zay Jones' first year. I mean, so many guys in this system haven't worked together. Is what you've seen enough up to this point, or are the wins all we matter, all that we care about right now?
Yeah, at least the games are close and competitive, like you said. So that is refreshing that we're in the games, opposed to being, smoked by like 14 points, 17, 21. So that is good. I will say also it's refreshing. Like, our wide receivers have been making good plays. I don't remember too many times this year that we've had big drops or, just not hanging on to the ball, like going across the middle. Like the wide receivers seem to be making plays. Christian Kirk's been huge. Evan Ingram's had a lot better year than I've thought. So it is nice to see that. They all seem to be able to catch the ball from Trevor Lawrence when Trevor Lawrence puts it on him. A little concerned. Did Marvin Jones play? I don't think he had a catch. Like, I feel like we need to get him maybe in the mix a little more. I've loved seeing Zay Jones, though. He's like kind of supposed to be the third option, I guess, but really he's kind of come into a number 2 role behind Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Marvin Jones is there. He's not playing as much. I think that's in large part due to Evan Ingram becoming such a key part of the passing game, which Evan Ingram has probably outside of like the first 4 weeks from Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram's probably made me the happiest from a lot of the free agents that we've signed, just because he is coming in and doing exactly what we wanted him to do that we hadn't seen him do in the past when he was with the Giants. So I do think he really adds a dynamic to this offense that we haven't seen in a long time. So I do like what I've seen from him. But as far as Marvin Jones goes, on the tail end of his career, obviously we'll get to the big blockbuster Jaguar trade a little bit later. We'll talk about that. But you have Christian Kirk and Zay Jones stepping up and making plays as well. Travis Etienne wasn't really that effective out of the backfield in the receiving game this game.
Nope.
I don't think. I think he had like three catches.
3 for 6. Yeah, 3
Yeah,
for 6.
3 catches for 6 yards. So, but Trevor Lawrence only 120 yards, 113 yards, whatever it was, 133.
133.
Now the Broncos defense, we talked about it last week's episode, one of the better defenses in the league. So seeing how this game played out, I wasn't overly surprised. But Trevor Lawrence, 133 yards and 2 interceptions. That's just unacceptable in my opinion. You have to find ways to pick up more yards, and if you're not going to do it on the ground, you got to do it in the pass game.
Yeah, I mean, we put up 331 yards total, I believe, which, Denver has a really good defense. That's not a horrible day. And we picked up 24 first downs compared to their 18, which kind of goes to your point about, we should be leading the league or in the hunt with, compared to some of the stats. I mean, we had 6 more first downs than them, which usually indicates, maybe you had a couple longer drives or scoring drives or whatever. That's just not the case. 2 picks for Lawrence and a fumble. We haven't talked about his fumble, but I mean, it's like every week or every other week there, he's holding the ball maybe just a touch too long, not aware of kind of the pocket around him. For the most part, he looks good and comfortable in the pocket, but I think he holds it a little too long, and he's got to be able to get rid of it.
What I've started to realize, and from rewatching the game a little bit, he looks so good when his first read is open on a traditional football play. So if it's just like a slant across the middle to Christian Kirk, or it's like a flag route to the corner, or those out routes, 10-yard outs, he can deliver the ball. He can drive the ball down the field. Where I really seen him start to struggle is when that first option's not available, and when he has to start spinning out of the pocket and kind of get into space. It's almost like he loses his equilibrium as to where everyone's supposed to be when he's in the hash marks, between the hash marks, and when he rolls out, he loses kind of where he's supposed to be or where the other players are, and that's when he kind of gets a little bit jumbled. Maybe that's a learning curve thing. I'm hoping that gets better as he develops chemistry with the offensive coordinator, the schemes, and all that good stuff. But what I will say, what's funny is a few weeks ago, what was it, against the Colts, right? We led that like 7-minute game leading touchdown drive, to which then the Colts responded by winning with like 30 seconds left. The Jaguars drove down the field in this one with about 4 minutes left, scored a touchdown to take the lead 17-14. It was right around 4 minutes to go. So that's now, for as much as we've sat here and said the offense gets the ball back late and can't drive the ball down to score, that's now 2 times in the last 3 weeks that we've seen the offense drive the ball down the field, score with 4 minutes left, and the defense then allow a touchdown going in the other direction. Right. So not a lot of people are talking about that because they want to focus on Trevor Lawrence not clutching it out when there's 2 minutes left. My problem right now is he has scored in the last 5 minutes 2 out of the last 3 weeks to take the lead, and then the defense kind of collapses on him. And I feel like that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. When we scored that, I did have a little bit of a bad feeling, like, probably too much time left for them. So the thing is, we scored, I think there was 3 minutes and 54 seconds left in the game. It took the Broncos, we got the ball back before the 2-minute warning. Right. Or no, never mind. They did have the 2-minute warning, excuse me. But it was like right after the 2-minute warning. So we just let the Broncos score real quick. Of course, it was helped out by like a 47-yard pass from Russell Wilson, which we talked about last week, how he has the capability to just throw the bombs and get it out deep. And fact of the matter is we got burnt on the outside. It was an easy catch, and that set them up really good for the rest of the drive to score a touchdown.
But what's sad is, when you say like there's too much time left on the clock, what's sad is for a team up until that point on defense that has allowed 2 touchdowns the entire game.
Right.
So like 2 touchdowns in the first 10 drives. You would like to think no matter how much time is on the clock, the defense is going to respond and step up and make the plays to get the turnover or force the punt or force the turnover on downs. And it's just not happening. So I see it. I would put more of the blame on the offense in a lot of situations. But to score and go up 3 with 4 minutes to go and then get the ball back 2 minutes later down 4, like your head spinning. I was like, what in the world is happening? They've scored 14 points all game, and you let them cakewalk this ball down the field in 2 minutes to score a touchdown when it matters the most.
Right.
Like, where are you, Trayvon Walker? Where are you, Josh Allen? Where are you, Devin Lloyd, Tyson Campbell, Rayshawn Jenkins? Like, where are you in crunch time?
Yeah, I do think the defense played well. We had 3 sacks and an interception, of course. So for the most part, they played well. I think maybe that was just the experienced Jags fan inside me, like knowing that we're capable of letting it go at the end there. So I will say we did a good job with timeout management. We didn't use our first timeout until the Broncos had the ball down near the goal line. I think we used it after the 2-minute warning, I believe, to stop the clock, and then they scored on the next play. That's exactly like I said last week. We need to save all 3 timeouts so we can either stop the clock on defense or use it to stop the clock while we're having the final drive. So going into that last drive, we had 2 timeouts and 1:40 to go. That's a good spot to be in if you're trying to score at the end.
Yeah, and I'll have to, honestly, right when that last interception happened, I kind of turned it off, and we were heading back up to Jacksonville, so I wanted to get out of Orlando as quick as I could, and didn't really get to see the replay or anything. I kind of want to go back and look. It looked like the ball wasn't put in the best spot, but it looked like a good defensive play by the corner.
Good defensive play, but I think he, like you talk about the first read, I think he just stared him down kind of from the get-go. Didn't let it develop. You have to know that the defense knows that you're going to be going for the outside on quick 10 to 15-yard routes to get down the field. Like, that's something that the defense is prepared for in the 2-minute drill. They'll let you take the inside of the, inside the numbers, especially when you need a touchdown and not a field goal. So I think that's something like, you got to put yourself in the defense's shoes. Like, okay, they know that we're going to be shooting for the outside, so I got to be cognizant of that. And he made a good jump on the ball.
And you have 2 timeouts, so like, playing to the outside isn't necessary at this point yet. I mean, it's obviously the safer way to go to get out of bounds and save time. But you have 2 timeouts, and the middle of the field is going to be the soft spot in the coverage. You might as well go for it with Christian Kirk or someone who can pick up some extra yards after the catch and maybe get down to like the 50, 45 quickly before you even have to start using timeouts.
Yeah, you could spike it. And if it's the first play, you get it like a 30-yard, 25-yard seam play.
Yeah, you get up, first down, spike it, and then you still have 2 timeouts, 1:25 to go maybe. But anyways, anything else from this game, the 21-17 loss, any other takeaways or observations from you?
No, I mean, just kind of like I said, we got good pressure for most of the game, 3 sacks and a pick by the defense. That pick at the very beginning of the game, I mean, you can't start a game any better. I think we got the ball first, right? We punt it, they got the ball, and then we got a pick right to start the game, and then a touchdown after that. I mean, that's as well as you can start a game for the most part. So I think we need to build on momentum like that. Not getting points before the half is brutal, especially when you get the ball to start the second half. Again, they gifted us 12 penalties for 81 yards. I think 10 of those were in the first half. They made some good halftime adjustments. But yeah, just another very winnable game where I think we led most of the stats, but we just couldn't get it done.
Yeah. I'm looking at that now, actually, now that you've said that. Their first drives were as follows: punt, interception, punt, touchdown, turnover on downs at the end of the half. And then we were actually putting together a nice little drive coming out of halftime when that Trevor Lawrence fumble occurred. Tyler Shatley recovered it 14 yards behind the line of scrimmage, so it was 3rd and 28 at that point. Okay. It was a 5-minute drive up to that point, though. They were moving the ball. So I think that goes back to not only are they making mistakes, they are literally making them at the most inopportune time. You couldn't ask for worse timing on some mistakes that this team is making. And that's just one of them, because if you can come out of halftime and score a touchdown there, the Broncos get the punt, go down and score a touchdown immediately to take the lead. And they, were kind of cooking with oil at that point. So we'll see what happens, but let's move forward to this Sunday, week 9, unless you have anything else. You good?
No, that's it. You summed it up well.
Let's rock and roll with the Las Vegas Raiders coming into town to TIAA Bank Field in week 9. So the Jaguars sitting at 2-6, taking on a Raiders team that just got shut out 24-0 to the New Orleans Saints. I mean, if that was maybe the most surprising result, if that wasn't the most surprising result from week 8, I don't know what was, because that was pretty shocking.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the Raiders that they're kind of in the same plane as the Jags and the Broncos. Is it like really not computing as to why they're doing so bad? I wouldn't say they had like super crazy high hopes, but I mean they got Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs is a beast. You would think they could be in the playoff hunt for sure. It does concern me being the team that has to play them after that because pretty much everything is reviewable as far as the film. They're down to change everything. You get shut out that poorly. Everything's on the table as far as what needs to be changed. I think it was that game where they didn't even get across midfield until like the fourth quarter, the Raiders, something like that, where they didn't even get across midfield until the fourth quarter. So I would imagine they're going to go through major adjustments during this week. And we don't have much film to watch from last week on them. I mean, everything they did wasn't working, so we don't know what to stop.
Yeah, and the one takeaway I will say is Kamara had 3 touchdowns last week, which kind of lines up well for our strength, which appears to be Travis Etienne and running the ball. So, not that Travis Etienne is even in the same breath as Kamara as far as what he's done in his career, Kamara in New Orleans, but similar style back, just very comfortable in open space. So if there is one thing that I'm looking forward to, it's seeing if the Jaguars can continue to build on this run success that they've seen in the last few weeks and kind of due to the Raiders, what the Saints did this past week, and get a win on the ground. That would be nice to see. I know a lot of us fans want to see Trevor Lawrence come out and take control of a game, and I feel like we've been sitting here waiting for that 300-yard, 4-touchdown performance, perfect, flawless game. But sometimes when you're 2-6, you just got to take a win any way you can take it. You're spot on. Not a lot of tape on this Raiders team. They have playmakers all over the field, but does not compute. This is a battle of two teams that do not make sense.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Raiders had a terrible game against the Saints, but they're actually 10th in rush defense and 25th in pass defense. So, I mean, if we can exploit some holes that we see on the rushing side, that's great. But I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to us, letting Trevor air it out some as well. The Raiders do have a decent, I think they're like 13th in points per game. So middle of the road. But they'll put up, they have a better offense as far as the points are concerned than the Broncos have this year. So I don't know. We'll see what our game plan is going into it. It is one of those things where, again, the Raiders have been kind of up in the air this year, so you don't know which angle you should attack them from.
Yeah, and the Raiders are 0-4 on the road this year, so that's something to keep in mind. And not only is this on the road, it's coming all the way across to the East Coast to Jacksonville. So maybe that plays in favor. Do we know, did they stay like on the East Coast after the game against New Orleans, or did they go back? I'm curious if they made the trip over and they just kind of stayed in this area. But it's going to be a spot where I feel like the Jaguars can really, I don't know if I'm saying this because they just lost 24-0. Had they lost 24-21, I don't know if I would be saying this, but it feels like a good opportunity for a bounce back game. You've just lost 4 straight games that you feel like you probably could have won, and probably should have won based on how the game was going. And you have another opportunity here against a team that doesn't really know what their identity is, doesn't really know what they're capable of, and by all accounts has underperformed pretty substantially this year, especially after the acquisition of Devontae Adams. Off the top of my head, is this probably the most talented receiver we've seen this season? Have we played anyone else? Because I feel like this might be the best receiver we've seen this season.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it doesn't get much better than Devontae Adams. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith we played against on the Eagles. Again, that was a weather game, though, so the passing wasn't too crazy. But, yeah, other than that, because I think when we played the Chargers, Keenan Allen was out, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
Keenan Allen was out. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, in my opinion, especially with the Packers, Adams is the best receiver in the league. He has incredible footwork. I'm very concerned if we try to play man, which we were doing a lot of against Denver. If you play man against Devontae Adams, it's probably not going to end too well for the defense. He has great footwork, and if him and David Carr can get the timing down, I think it could be a long day for the Jaguars secondary. What's the other guy they have? I'm forgetting his name right now.
The other receiver on the Raiders?
Yeah, the white guy.
Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, so that's another guy that's going to get underneath, and he's going to, we'll see. I am a little worried. I mean, I want to be honest. I think two wide receivers like that could be trouble for Jacksonville. Although, in fairness, Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, aside from Judy's like long bomb at the end, we kept them pretty under control. I think his touchdown was like a jet sweep touchdown. It wasn't like it was a deep pass or anything. But like I said, it's just Raiders coming off of a bad loss like that. I think they're really going to be seeing red out there.
Yeah, I think they're going to be hungry. They're in the same position as us where they're looking for a get-right game, and I feel like the Raiders are probably more talented to get right than the Jaguars. Jaguars have the home field advantage, but as far as playing a balanced offense with Derek Carr, who I would say is top 15 quarterback in the league, Josh Jacobs, top 15 running back in the league, and Devontae Adams, top 5 receiver in the league, this is probably the toughest test we faced up to this point, considering Keenan Allen was gone or out and Justin Herbert was injured in LA for the Chargers. But this is a Raiders team that we've seen put up points. So them putting up 0 last week was a surprise. That was the exception, not the rule for this team. So I could see them coming out and exploiting some weaknesses in our secondary, with Shaquille Griffin kind of being a mess all season. And I think he's on the IR right now, so he won't be playing. But at the end of the day, the defense has been kind of the surprise for us, where they have kept us in a lot of games, maybe more so than we should have been otherwise. So I think it's going to be a good challenge. I think it's going to be a good challenge for Tyson Campbell to see what he's really made of, because there's been a lot of hype around him, which has been great for us. I think Rayshawn Jenkins and Andre Sisco are going to have their hands full. And then you look at Devin Lloyd and Darren Waller. With Darren Waller, we hadn't even mentioned him yet. Just one of the better receiving tight ends in the entire game. So you're going to have Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokun with their hands full. So matchup to matchup, defensively for us, I think we have the athletes, we have the players to match up with them. The question is it going to be a bend, don't break, or is it going to be a break and break some more kind of game for this defense? But we'll see there. But let's get to score predictions, Kyle, for this Raiders game, unless you had any other thoughts on the Raiders Jags.
I think that we could get after Derek Carr. I think the line has been playing really well. The defensive front. So I think we can get after Derek Carr. He can be kind of sackable at times. So it's just we got to have the corners holding off the quick passes and give them time to get home. So, that's it. I'm looking forward to it. I am curious. What's up?
I have a question. If the Jaguars, let's say, come out and win this game 24-21 or lose this game 24-21, not that that's my score prediction, does it change your feeling of this team currently where we sit? Like, does a win or a loss at this point in the season change your vibes or your feelings about this team? Or are you kind of set in stone right now with how things are with this team? Like, how important is a win versus...
I mean, I think winning is always good. I mean, people want to act like players should be out there throwing the game for better draft picks. That's simply not the case. There's going to be 10, 15, 20% turnover on these rosters, and they got to try to get a job somewhere. So nobody's out there trying to lose the game. And I also don't think we're in a position with our quarterback and our team as a whole where we can be okay, like taking the foot off the gas. We need to be competitive, and those real game reps are going to be important for next year. So, win or lose, we just need to remain competitive. We do have the Raiders, as far as, like, in my eyes, winnable games coming up. Raiders, Lions, Titans, Jets, Texans, and Titans again. And I only say the Titans because it's a division game and we can always play them tough. But, we do have the Chiefs and we do have the Ravens and the Cowboys who are all looking good. So, again, if we can find a way to get 5 more wins and be, 7-10, I think that's a successful season.
Yeah. And honestly,
which hurts to say, but I think at this point, being realistic, that is okay.
Well, 7-10 hurts to say after we start at 2-1 and after how we've seen them play. If you were to tell me 7-10 back in mid-August, I would have said, that's 5 more wins than we had last year. That's a, great start to the rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 2-1 start really kind of put this fan base in a little bit of a delusional spot, including myself. But I also don't think the close losses have helped that at all, because they've been so close to winning so many games. They could easily be 4-4, 5-3 at this point in the season. So it's a double-edged sword. You want to see your team be competitive, but it's also like, are they overperforming in losing because they're a young team, or are they performing where they should be based on skill? Jacob and I looked at a few teams from the past that have had this close of losses, like point differentials with bad records, and the Jets was one of them. The Giants from last year was one of them. And I think it's just a matter of, you lose these close games, you kind of go into the offseason, you evaluate what went wrong, what key plays, what moments changed the outcome of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And you come back next year, one more year under your belt, one offseason under your belt, and you hope as a fan, as with the team, that they can come out and turn some of those close losses into close wins.
Absolutely.
But I'm tired of going into these games thinking to myself, oh, if they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. I want to get back into the mindset of, I want to win this game, because I want to be excited to watch the games. So That's where I'm at the moment right now. But score prediction from you, Jags Raiders on Sunday, if we can get a score prediction.
I think it's going to be 28-20 Raiders.
All right. I'm going to go 24-23 Raiders.
Okay, so hopefully picking against the Jags will change the outcome.
I've done that. I've picked against them every time in the family pool, so it's worked out for me pretty well this season. It's 24-23 Raiders, but it's going to be 23-17. Raiders are going to get the ball back with 3 minutes left, and the defense is going to collapse again, third time in 4 weeks, to let the Raiders win 24-23 in this one. So, but let's move ahead and look at some NFL storylines, and we can't not start with the big trade that occurred to our very own Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that very rarely makes trades during the NFL season because typically they're sellers and not buyers.
Mm-hmm.
But in maybe one of the most intricate, unique trades we've seen happen in the NFL in some recent time, the Jaguars have sent a 6th round and conditional 5th round pick to the Atlanta Falcons for suspended receiver Calvin Ridley. What are your initial thoughts on that trade?
I mean, I think it's like classic Jaguars to trade for a receiver on layaway. But, I mean, it is, if you think about it, we essentially swapped James Robinson for Calvin Ridley, more or less. And I think it's adding a weapon to Trevor Lawrence for next year. I don't think it's horrible. Again, we only gave up a 6th conditional 5th. That's not a huge deal. So, again, I like it. I think it's kind of funny. It's classic Jaguars. It shows that we're pretty much, sent it in for the season. But looking ahead for next year, I don't hate it. I think Calvin Ridley's good. I think he had a bad year. I think he's unfairly suspended for a year, but that worked out in our favor.
And ironically enough, the game he got suspended for betting on was Falcons over the Jaguars, and now he's a Jacksonville Jaguar, and
That's
he
classic.
seems happy. What's up?
That's classic. I didn't know it was the game that we played against them.
Yeah, last year, which was also the extra game. It was the 17th game that the NFL added to the season when the Jags traveled to Atlanta for that game. That was the week we were at the Gasparilla Bowl, actually, and the Jags played the Falcons, and he bet on the Falcons to beat the Jags, and then the Jags traded for him. But yeah, I said on Twitter, it's so on brand for the Jaguars to make a huge trade, and then the fan base has to wait 10 months to see the product on the field. We just can't have anything instantly, whether it's in a trade or success. But I do like the trade from the standpoint of it kind of frees up some flexibility in the draft coming up. You're kind of realizing you're probably going to have a top 10 pick again this year, sitting at 2 and 6. I think they're currently drafting 4th or 5th.
Right.
And you go out and you get a big body wide receiver, him, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones next year with Travis Etienne, with Evan Ingram if he gets re-signed again to another extension or to an extension. That's a pretty damn good receiving core, especially if Calvin Ridley comes back in good shape, ready to play, ready to ball, which I assume he is. That's what he says on Twitter and in social media. But I like the move, just setting it up for the future. It's kind of like a chess, not checkers move. and kind of gives me the feel that what we had with Travis Etienne this year, where he was injured his rookie year, and we got him back this year, this felt like his first season. It's kind of giving me that vibe with Calvin Ridley. Like, we have him in our back pocket. We just can't use him yet.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a great asset for him, and it'll also, strengthen our receiving core. I think those three, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and then Calvin Ridley would be solid.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. There were obviously a lot of other big trades around the NFL. Nick Chubb from the Broncos going over to
Bradley.
I said Nick.
Yeah.
Damn. Bradley Chubb going from the Broncos over to the Miami Dolphins. Jeff Wilson going over to the Miami Dolphins as well. What other trades happened? Chase Claypool from the Steelers to the Bears.
Yeah, Roquan Smith went to the Ravens.
Roquan Smith to the Ravens. Yeah, it was honestly a very active trade.
TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings.
Very active trade deadline considering what we typically see in the NFL. I kind of hope that trend continues though, because that's a lot of fun. Kind of like fantasy football. So a lot of trades happening. Jaguars, of course, the only team that can't use their new toy at the moment. But we'll see how it plays out for every other team that gets to use theirs. But Kyle, what are we buying? What are we buying after week 8 of the NFL season? You got anything in mind that you are buying?
I mean, I feel like kind of the Falcons. That was an awesome game on Sunday. They've won some tough games. They're in a not great division, so they're in a position to be able to potentially win it. They beat the 49ers. They, got smoked the next week by the Bengals. And then they beat the Panthers. They play the Chargers, who have been underperforming this year. Then they play the Panthers, Bears, Commanders, Steelers, Saints. So that's like a streak of games right there that are all very winnable, that I think they could, maintain that first place lead in the division.
Yeah, no, I like that one. That's a fun team, and they're in a good spot. Tom Brady losing on Thursday night to the Ravens for the first time he's ever lost 3 games in a row, or the first time he's ever been 2 games below 500 in his whole career. Like something crazy. There's a lot that I want to buy this week. I feel like now that we're halfway through, we're kind of seeing things shake out a little bit nicely here. One of them would be that the Ravens are back and legit, coming out and beating the Bucks. The Vikings. I mean, you can't discount what the Vikings are doing. Both them and the Giants are currently sitting at the top of, or towards the top of their divisions. Vikings in first in their division. Some surprise teams out there, but I do like the Vikings. Definitely buying them. And then the last thing I'm going to buy is just the Taylor Heineke hype. Is just so fun and so awesome. And for him to come down in 2-minute drill, something Trevor Lawrence hasn't done for us, but for him to do it, coming off the bench against a division rival in the Indianapolis Colts, our division rival, that is, I'm going to buy the Taylor Heineke hype.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Taylor Heineke too. It sounds like the players, rallied around him. I saw Terry McLaurin in like an interview or him talking about Heineke after the game. Seems like he's a big fan. So happy for him. Yeah,
definitely happy for him. What about the Seahawks? That was a game, the Seahawks-Giants, we talked about last game as being one of the most exciting games of Week 8. Seahawks come out, win 27-13, solidify themselves as a force in the NFC. You buying the Seahawks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I picked the Giants last week when we talked about it. But absolutely, I mean, it was nothing against the Seahawks, but Geno Smith has shown that he deserves to be a starter in this league. The Seahawks look like geniuses. I think we mentioned that last week too with Russell Wilson. But Kenneth Walker III, DK Metcalf, just Tyler Lockett, all looking like they're clicking.
Yeah, they're looking good. But let's get to what we're selling after Week 8. Anything that you're selling after Week 8?
I think I'm selling the Jets. I don't know exactly the stat that I saw, but I had a feeling. Well, the Patriots lost Monday night last week. We recorded on Monday, so we didn't see the outcome of that game. But after they got smoked by the Bears, I knew they were going to win that game. But yeah, the Jets, I think they've played some not great teams when they've been winning. I mean, they've looked much improved. Don't get me wrong. But, the Bengals beat them, and then they went on a Steelers. They smoked the Dolphins, but that was without Tua. Then they beat the Packers, which was a good win, and then they beat the Broncos. But now they got the Bills and then the Patriots again coming up. So 2 more tough games in a row. I'm not saying they're out of the playoffs by any means or anything like that. I just think it's going to get a little bit tougher for them down the stretch. They do have the Bears, but then they got the Vikings and the Bills again. So 4 of their next 5 games are against very tough opponents.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see them in that spot, but definitely a sellable team at this point after what we saw over the last 3 weeks and a lot of hype around that team. I'm gonna go ahead and sell the LA Rams as legitimate NFC contenders. Could they sneak into the playoffs? Maybe, but not with the way the Seahawks are playing and not with the way the Niners are playing. Because right now the Rams I would put as the 3rd best team in that division, maybe the 4th, with how the Rams have been playing. What Christian McCaffrey did to that team on Sunday was out of a video game. He had the football hat trick, throwing a touchdown, catching a touchdown, and rushing for a touchdown, all the while playing against my fantasy team, which I lost by 4 points, and he put up 35 points against me. So I had my eye on that game closely, but the Rams are not in a good spot. They have the Bucks coming up, which both those teams, that was in the offseason going to be an exciting matchup. I don't know how I feel about it now. But then you have the Cardinals, Saints, and then you got the Chiefs, Seahawks after that. So I think they are in a very bad spot. And then I'm also going to sell the Cincinnati Bengals without Jamar Chase. If they don't have Jamar Chase, this team is not a playoff team, and that's been shown. And the Browns exposed that on Monday night, winning 32-13. The Browns did what they wanted to with that Bengals team, and the Browns rushing offense came alive. So Bengals fall to 4-4 with that loss to the Browns. What I saw from them was just pretty embarrassing. So,
yeah, I agree with those. That was a crazy game on Monday night.
Yeah, it was unexpected to see what the Browns did, but definitely said more about the Bengals losing Jamar Chase than I think it did about the Browns being good. So, but let's look ahead to Week 9 real quick. Week 9, best game of Week 9 coming up on Sunday. I guess starting Thursday, but Thursday night, Eagles-Texans. Yeah, how great is that going to be?
Right. Yeah, I think I'd have to go with like you mentioned, the Rams and the Bucks. That should be another one of those games like the Packers and the Bills last week that we should be salivating over. But I think I'm going to go – Titans, Chiefs, I'll be interested. They've met in the playoffs before. I think the Chiefs will win that pretty handedly. No disrespect against the Titans. I think the Titans are a good team. But, last week they just fed the ball to Derrick Henry, I think 35 times. Malik Willis,
Malik Willis, yeah, with the Titans.
Yeah. I think he threw it like 10 times or something crazy like that. So he barely had to do much. I don't know if Tannehill's coming back or not, but I don't think the Chiefs are a team that you can just run to death because they're going to put up points pretty quick.
Yeah, the Titans, Chiefs, I always feel like they do have close games, but with the way the Chiefs have kind of, and especially at home, Sunday Night Football, this team's going to be up for him. But Derrick Henry seems to get up for these big games, and he's kind of hitting his stride. So I could see that being a really good game. I'm going to go with Seahawks Cardinals. I'm going to just keep riding the Seahawks train because maybe it's not the best game in terms of record, but I think it's going to be one of the most exciting games of the week between two offenses that can score. The Cardinals, if they lose this game, you might as well count your playoff hopes and your dreams because they're not in reality anymore. If the Cardinals lose this game, no chance of making the playoffs, in my opinion. So I think there's a lot on the line in that one. Divisional matchup, Seahawks Cardinals, my best game of the week. Let's get to lock of week 9. Lock of week 9, straight up pick, putting the house on it, putting the car on it.
Oh, well.
Lock of the week, Eagles.
Yeah, it's got to be the Eagles. They're a wagon right now. They went crazy last week. The Texans have been in shambles. So, if we're going easy lock of the week, it's going to be the Eagles. If we're going maybe more tricky lock of the week, then I think I might go the Packers. Packers over the Lions. I think this has to be the game that they get right. And if not, it's going to be really bad for Aaron Rodgers and that team.
Yeah, that's in Detroit. Detroit's 1-6. I would love to see Detroit win that
But
game, though.
if you're the Packers, you have to win that game. But I'll go with the Eagles for the lock.
Yeah, I would go Eagles. How about this? The Bills are 12.5-point favorites at the Jets. And the Jets are 5-3, and the Bills are 6-1. That's just another massive line for the Bills this season. If I had to go with a tougher lock of the week, I would go with the Vikings over the Commanders.
Okay.
I just think the Vikings, they're 3.5-point favorites at the moment. But I just think the way they're playing right now is really good football. I think the offense is just clicking on all cylinders. And Justin Jefferson's going to feast this week. You heard it here first. But other than that, yeah, Philadelphia for sure. And then upset special in week 9. Any upsets you like in week 9?
I feel like I'm going to take your game, but it looks like the Seahawks are 2-point dogs for some reason. So
Yeah, I don't get that.
I'm going to go with the Seahawks. It sounds like they're still doubting Geno and the team there. So I think I have to go with the Seahawks.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. You know what? I'll go with the Falcons since you took the Seahawks.
I was thinking the Falcons too.
I'll go Falcons. They get Cordero Patterson back this week. They're like a fun team to watch, a fun team to root for. They're everything that I wanted the Detroit Lions to be this year. But it's the Falcons, so they have a lot of playmakers. They don't really have much of a defense, but if you can score points, that's what you kind of have to do to beat the Chargers. So I'll go Falcons as my upset special for week 9. So anything else from you before we call it an evening?
No, I think that's it. I mean, hopefully the Jags play better. Crazy to believe we're halfway through the NFL season. Still a lot of up in the air, which I think is maybe why we saw a more active trade deadline this year, is because there's a lot of teams in that middle fighting for position. I think you got a couple of teams, like I said last week, that are at the top, and then a couple at the bottom. But even a 3-5 team right now in a division has a chance. Yeah,
no, that's spot on. It's an exciting season to watch, just from a general standpoint of being a fan of football. A lot of teams clustered in that 4-4, 5-3, 3-5 range. So a lot left to shake out. College football season's more than halfway through, so a lot of fun football to be watching ahead. But appreciate you being here again, and hoping for a Jaguars victory against the Raiders this Sunday, and maybe a more fun podcast to record next week. But fans out there listening, go find us on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel. Find us on your preferred podcast streaming platform. Enjoy the first week of November, almost Christmas time. But whatever you do, go make this world a better place, and take care.
How can I be the man when you're the man? How can I be the man when you're the man? How can I be the man when you're the man?